New randomized controlled trial looking at the low insulin method is showing efficacy for weight loss. Find out the details of this brand new study today here on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You gotta go follow me though. I start off over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so thank you so much for being here today. We also simulcast live over here on Facebook, where my faithful follower Norma always says hello. Hello, Norma, and everyone else joining me on Facebook today. And we also simulcast live over on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys for being here today. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you miss a live, you can watch it on replay. We do put it up on IGTV just as soon as this is over, so you can watch it. And a bunch of you guys do watch the replay, so thank you so much for watching. We also put the replay up over on YouTube. If you type in the keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Finally, pop on over to the official website for this show. It is JimmyRants.com. That's where you can see all the past episodes, well over 600 episodes and counting. And all of those will be available for you pretty much on demand whenever you want to watch. So go check them out there. Or if you want to support my work, that's where you can support me through a Patreon or PayPal link. And a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. All of those links, JimmyRants.com. So good Monday morning to you guys. This is a very special week in my work, not just here on Jimmy Rants, but across all of my work, because this is my last week of 2020. So I decided when I got back from sabbatical in March that I was going to take the end of the year off to refresh, renew, regenerate, and all the things to get ready for the new year. So that was already in place. But then 2020 hit with all the everything that we all have been dealing with regarding the virus and the election and all the everything else, plus my own personal things I'm dealing with in my life. It's the right time to kind of step away. And so this is my final week. So I have a very special surprise for those of you that engage in my work this week. I decided, you know what? I'm gooder with English. I have written a whole bunch of books: Cholesterol Clarity, Keto Clarity, Ketogenic Cookbook, Complete Guide to Fasting, The Keto Cure, Real Food Keto, and Keto Clarity Cookbook. Those are my major publisher ones. I have a couple of books that came before that. This was my very first book way back when. Living La Vida Low Carb was the original book, and then 21 Life Lessons from Living La Vida Low Carb. These are my indie books, my self-published. I don't really promote them, nor do I keep copies of them around, so not including them in this giveaway. But I'm going to give away a whole bunch of those books all week long. So all you literally have to do is engage in my work. So you're watching this right now, either watching it live or you're watching on the replay. The prerequisite is leave a comment. So every day on Jimmy Rants this week, literally every day, and Friday I've got something very special in store, so definitely come back Friday. But every single person who leaves a comment below, you can say hi if that's all you want to do, but ask a question, comment, engage with what I'm talking about, and it will be great. But I will choose one random person out of the 3 different places I'm going live on, and somebody live on the air every single day is going to win one of my books. So that's a cool deal, right? But that's not the only way you win. You can also go to any of my posts on social media. You can leave a comment on my YouTube channel. You can basically the prerequisite is engage by leaving a comment. Wherever I am online, engage by leaving a comment. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you are and you're seeing this, you're hearing my voice, you're reading my words, just engage, leave a comment, and that is your entry. And I'm going to probably do about 6 to 10 winners a day. So we're going to be giving away quite a few books. So get ready, you guys. And so somebody today, live on the air, is going to win. We won't do it right now. I'm going to make you stick around a little while, but I got a great study to tell you about. But that's what's going to be happening this week. I'm calling it my Farewell Freebies Giveaway Contest. So it is farewell after the end of this week. You won't see me again for the rest of the year. So I wanted to make sure I did something, go out with a bang, as they say. And I've been a very prolific author and very successful at that. So why not bless you guys with some of those books? So get your comment ready while I'm talking about this study. Start commenting. And one of your comments right now here live on the air is going to win you a book. And somebody watching the replay, you're also going to get a copy or your chance to win a copy. And I'm going to let you choose which of those 7 you want. So pretty much most of you have like Keto Clarity and the Fasting book, or maybe you don't. So you get to choose the one you don't have. Or if you want to get one for a Christmas present, I don't care what you do with it. I'm going to autograph it for you, by the way. So yes, don't worry about that. I will sign it. And then, yeah, at the end of the week, I'll have several dozen books to ship off. And yeah, that'll be my swan song for 2020. All right, so that's the contest, and I'll share about that every day in case you're like, hey, I didn't hear about the contest. So you're gonna not help but hear about it, because that's all I'm gonna talk about this week. But today I have a very interesting topic to bring to you, because I think since I've been online back in 2004, went on the Atkins diet, 2005, I started blogging with Living La Vida Low Carb blog, and then 2006 started podcasting with the Living La Vida Low Carb show. It seems like there are various incarnations of a low carb diet. So when I came on the scene, it was the Atkins diet. You had Protein Power, you had the Zone diet and the South Beach diet. All these kind of were predicated on having lower consumption of carbohydrate in your diet. Then the Paleo and Primal came along, and Ancestral and Whole30. Those were also more reduced carbohydrate types of diets. Then you had keto come on in full force, and now carnivore and real food. You know what the common denominator is between all of those diets that have been popular over the past like 20 years? They're all low insulin diets. And so I have long been pushing that we need to move away from labeling diets and more towards labeling the outcome that we're desiring, because the outcome we're looking for is low insulin, because when insulin is lower, fat loss comes, inflammation lowers, chronic disease goes away, all of these really great things. Inflammation levels lower, blood pressure lowers, blood sugar lowers when you have a low insulin type of method. And so I think the more we push low insulin as the goal, and not necessarily low carb, not necessarily paleo, ketogenic, carnivore, none of those things really matter nearly as much as making sure your body is in the best position to be healthy. And the way you're healthy is to keep your insulin and inflammation levels low. So lo and behold, I found a study that just came out September 30th of this year. It was published in the journal Nutrients, and it's all about a low insulin method. So I was real excited to see this. I got the full details, guys, the full paper, not just the abstract. So we're going to go over that here today. It is a study out of Germany. Once again, we can't get good research here in America. We got to rely on China and the UK and Australia and New Zealand, and now today Germany, to give us the research that we're looking for. But better to get it internationally than not at all. But this is a study that was published, and again, if you just joined us, we're going over a study right out of Germany. This is a randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard when it comes to research. And it was published September 30th, 2020 in the journal Nutrients. And the title of it is Weight Reduction by the Low Insulin Method. It's a randomized controlled trial. And so they start the study. Continuous high insulin levels are associated with weight gain and lead to cardiometabolic diseases. Therefore, we have developed what we call the Low-Insulin Method, and we've integrated it into the multi-component occupational healthcare program that they called Shape and Motion Medical Accompanied Slimming. So they call it SAMMAS, SAMMAS, to help reduce daily insulin levels in order to achieve long-term weight reduction in those who have obesity and are overweight. So they had employees randomized into a starting intervention group. There were 15 of those people, or a waiting list group. There was 15 of those people. So SAMMAS consisted of group-based seminars. So this is kind of what they did in the study. They had group-based seminars kind of teaching the diet. Low carbohydrate nutrition was the formula diet. Now, when you say low insulin method, what is the number one stoker of insulin? If you guessed carbohydrates, you win the low carb cookie of the day, because there are a lot of things that impact your insulin levels, but nothing impacts insulin levels quite like carbohydrates do, and especially refined carbohydrates. But even the so-called healthy ones, even vegetables that are more starchy can have an insulin response. Even so-called healthy fruit can cause an insulin response. And so carbohydrates are the basis of stoking insulin. So if you're trying to come up with a low insulin method, a low carbohydrate nutritional approach, which is what they're using in this study, is a smart way to design the diet. They also use continuous glucose monitoring, telemetric monitoring, and telemedical coaching. In other words, they were over Skype, Zoom, phone to do all of these things. Both of the groups, either the control group or the intervention group, got telemetric devices at baseline. The intention to treat analyses were performed at 12 weeks, 26 weeks, and 52 weeks. So guys, this was a 1-year study. 1-year study in a randomized controlled setting. This is hardcore, really good science. I hope you're seeing that. Yes, it's a small study, only 30 people involved, but when you have this rigorous of detail and that length of time, looking at some kind of a nutritional approach, this is really good study design. The estimated treatment difference in weight reduction after 12 weeks, which is the primary endpoint, they primarily wanted to see what happened after basically 3 months on doing this method. They kept going after that, but 12 weeks was the primary endpoint. They showed a pronounced effect in favor of the ones that were on the low insulin diet. They lost 6.3 kilograms. Alexa, how many pounds is 6.3 kilograms?
6.3 kilograms is about 13 pounds, 14 ounces.
So 13 pounds is what that is. So that's a pretty good after 12 weeks. That's basically a little more than a pound a week. Versus 7.4 pounds lost in the control group. So Alexa, what is 7.4 kilograms in pounds?
7.4 kilograms is about 16 pounds, 5 ounces.
Did they do that right? I think they mixed the numbers up. I think they meant one was the one and one was the other. Anyway, 16 pounds is what that one was. So it was similar weight loss after 12 weeks. Furthermore, though, what they found was the low insulin diet improved fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, their quality of life was better, their fasting insulin was better, blood pressure, and eating behavior, while the other group, that was the control group, did not. After 26 and 52 weeks, weight reduction was actually maintained in both groups. So that's cool. So the support clinically showed relevant weight reduction and long-term weight loss maintenance in individuals with overweight or obesity. So the point was that we're told the only way we can lose weight and keep it off in the long term is to only focus on calorie reduction, fat reduction, all the things that we've always heard is kind of the standard healthy diet. And what this study showed was, no, when you focus on a low insulin approach, you can get just as strong of an evidence of success doing this low insulin, which ends up being a low carbohydrate approach. That's pretty good. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of the study. And again, if you're just joining us, we have a brand new randomized controlled clinical trial. Was published in the journal Nutrients, September 30th, 2020. It's out of Germany, and it finds weight loss success with the low insulin method. And I was doing a little bit of a rant at the beginning about I think this low insulin thing can catch on, because if the point of being healthy is to lower insulin levels, then okay, for some people, paleo will lower insulin levels. For some people, kind of a primal approach will lower insulin levels. For some people, Whole30 will lower insulin levels. Some people, a ketogenic diet is necessary to lower insulin, and other people, a carnivore diet. So it's different strokes for different folks, which means all of those fall within the parameters of what you would call a low insulin method. So we're reading from this study that's taken a look at the low insulin method. And again, it's straight out of Germany. So let's get to the introduction. In industrialized countries with a Western diet, 3 mostly carbohydrate-rich meals have been established with an additional evening snack or several snacks throughout the day. Such excessive carbohydrate-rich nutrition in combination with a low physical activity, which is all a part of a poor lifestyle, supports the development of overweight, obesity, and cardiometabolic diseases, things like type 2 diabetes. Starch-free and complex carbohydrates, fiber from whole grain, are associated with a longer life expectancy and a reduced blood glucose level. However, the consumption of less of these carbohydrates leads to an insulin secretion, which not only mediates the uptake of glucose from the blood into the cells, but already at a lower concentration by a factor of 6, which when that happens, it stops lipolysis for several hours. Lipolysis is the burning of fat. And so the whole purpose of going on a fat burning diet to try to lose weight and lose fat is to make lipolysis happen. If you stop it for several hours, you're basically just telling your body, yeah, I don't care. This tastes good on my tongue. I'm going to eat it anyway. I don't care if it stops lipolysis. Well, if your goal is to burn fat, that's a very bad thing. And the problem is, just as that wearing off of the few hours of stopping lipolysis wears off, what do you do again? Eating again, either a snack, either a meal, and all that carbohydrate that you're basically doing all day long, all night long, is stopping your ability to burn fat. The duration of the blockade depends, among other things, on your BMI. I would also say it depends on your level of insulin resistance. If your body is already having difficulty being able to have a normal insulin response, it can't deal with those carbohydrates in an effective way. So compared to lean individuals, and I would add to that, not just lean, but insulin sensitive, people with overweight or obesity have increased levels of fasting insulin. They show sharp rises in insulin after carbohydrate consumption. So that's the postprandial, after eating kind of readings. And the postprandial insulin levels remain elevated for much longer. Because your body, over time, when you become insulin resistant, you got to think of it as they stop listening. So they got their hands over their ears, la, 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 and all this blood sugar comes, but they're not really hearing it, and they become sluggish, which means more insulin has to be pumped out of the pancreas in order to try to deal with all that excess blood sugar in your bloodstream. Okay, so that doesn't come without consequences, that higher level of insulin. Hyperinsulinemia is what that's called, and not only caused by consistent and excessive carbohydrate consumption, but it may also, listen to this, may also be food additives like emulsifiers. Do you consume foods that have emulsifiers? If you don't, look on the packaging of some of the things that you're eating, maybe not you guys because you're eating healthier now, but think about all the junk foods. And if you ever look on the panel and it says emulsify, blah, 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 that's got emulsifiers in it. Also, sedentary lifestyle and other environmental factors play a role, is all thought to be the causes of increased prevalence of overweight and obesity. So, accordingly, lifestyle interventions comprising healthy diet and physical activity are highly recommended for people who are overweight or obese. Despite immense initiatives all over the world to stop obesity, the incidence and prevalence of overweight and obesity has continued to increase dramatically. So to counter this, in recent years, there have been various dietary approaches that have become popular. However, all of these different nutritional approaches primarily focus on the composition of the food, and they often disregard the physiological reaction in the body. I love this because when someone gets a favorite pet diet, they become religious about it. They become fanatical about it. They believe that one diet is the be-all, end-all, can't beat it, nothing's better in the whole world, and everybody in the world should be on it kind of diet. Can I get a witness? You know, some of those nauseating people like that? And I'm about to step on your toes. Are you one of those nauseating people like that? I mean, it's very easy to fall into the trap when you have seen great success in your weight and health doing X diet. It's hard not to become a little bit evangelical about it and believe that it's the right diet for all people. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's very easy to fall into that. It's so tempting. And I'll tell you, I really first saw it on a very grand scale when I was involved in the Paleo community. This is about 10 years ago. And they were pretty popular at the time. And I remember how it was just almost a pretentiousness. Oh, if you're not eating paleo, then you're obviously not caring about your health. And so it became very elitist very fast. Nobody wants to put up with that. Number one, paleo's not right for everybody. Keto's not right for everybody. Carnivore's not right for everybody. None of these diets are right for everybody, but that's the trap that you fall into when these diets become very popular, is you believe, oh, well, this is the one and only true way for everyone, and it just ain't that way. And so I love in this study where they say it's not about the macronutrients, it's not about the food makeup, it's about what does that food of whatever diet you're eating, what does that food do to your body physiologically? And in this study, they're looking at, okay, we want a low insulin method to keep insulin levels low. Well, in the study, they just made the point that it's not about that, but we do know carbohydrates do have a direct impact on your insulin levels. And so you don't want to overeat those. That's obvious, unless you're just super duper dippity, able to burn those very quickly and efficiently. But most people aren't going to do that. But I loved that part of this study where they said we need to stop looking at the food and look at what the food is doing to us. And that's so true. So to that end, they developed what they call the Low-Insulin Method, and they integrated it into their SAMA's program, like we said earlier, that aims to lower insulin levels in order to allow for effective lipolysis. So lowering insulin is a multifaceted thing. I think it would be easy to say, well, just put them on a low-carb diet and that will automatically lower insulin. Okay, it does lower it, but is that the only thing that impacts your insulin levels? No. I think stress plays a big role in your insulin levels going up. I think a lack of exercise, or the opposite of that, exercising will lower insulin levels. So if you don't exercise, you're keeping your insulin higher than it needs to be. So there's all kinds of things you could do as a low insulin method. In previous studies, we've shown that lifestyle interventions of the low insulin method, which includes a low carbohydrate meal replacement, that's one thing that they do. They also check blood glucose on a regular basis as part of this low insulin method. They have telemedicine services, coaching, medical, mental motivation. So when your mindset's not right, they're there. See, all of these things contribute to having a better level of insulin. And they say the previous studies they've done have led to clinically relevant improvements in body weight and all the cardiometabolic parameters in various cohorts. In this trial that we're reading from today, it's a randomized controlled trial, RCT. They combined these evaluated lifestyle intervention components, tested the hypothesis that the application of this low insulin method in an occupational healthcare setting for 12 weeks supports clinically relevant weight loss in those who have overweight and obesity compared to a control group, and the long-term effects of weight loss as well on laboratory, anthropometric, and behavioral parameters after 52 weeks. So again, I love that they went a full year with this study so they could see, okay, they not only lost weight in 12 weeks, but they kept it off for the whole year. Okay, let's take a look at the study population. So as part of an occupational healthcare initiative, employees that are employed at the Düsseldorf Catholic Hospital in Düsseldorf, Germany, were offered a chance to participate. The prerequisite was they have to have overweight or obesity. Eligible volunteers had to be over the age of 18, a BMI over 25. Exclusion criteria are people that had acute diseases like cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, dementia, chronic bowel disease, psychosis, liver cirrhosis, nephropathy, renal insufficiency. In other words, they don't want people that are sick. The only exception was they did not mind having people with type 2 diabetes, which I think it goes along a lot of times with the obesity. They also could not have been involved in a smoking cessation, intake of drugs for weight reduction. They can't be pregnant, and that's all the exceptions. Okay, so they were all given an ID number, and they stored them in a closed envelope with a group assignment. The first participant took place and was enrolled on January 11th, 2018. The last participant finished the study April 10th, 2019. The study was conducted at the West German Center of Diabetes and Health in Düsseldorf, Germany. All right, so let's look at the design of the study. You liking this study so far? It's pretty good. Eligible participants were randomly assigned into either the starting intervention group or the waiting list, which was the control group. So the waiting list was never going to actually participate in the study, but they told them, hey, you're in the waiting list to get on the study. In the meantime, eat your normal diet. But then the intervention group, they put them on the Low-Insulin Method. So after the baseline examination, all participants were equipped with scales and pedometers, so they tracked all of their fitness parameters. The low insulin group started immediately with the intervention with weekly contact during the 12-week intervention phase. The contacts consisted of a group-based education program. There were 7 theoretical sessions, in other words, explaining why it is they're eating this way and doing everything, and 2 practical modules lasting 90 minutes each. In other words, 2 90-minute teaching them how to do it. So they had 7 that explain why you're doing it and 2 how to do it. Telemedical coaching, 4 care calls, all lasting 20 to 30 minutes each. So they're getting pretty intensive education, support, answering questions, giving them medical advice, They also got, at the same time, the other group, the control group, continued all their habitual lifestyle. They got no further information. During the follow-up, the low insulin group got monthly care calls. In parallel, when they finished the 12 weeks, the other group started with 12 weeks and underwent the same treatment. The participants, the study nurse, and the outcome assessor were all blinded for sequence of allocation concealment. Remember earlier, they all got a number and it was sealed in an envelope. So they didn't know which group they were in, and neither did the people that were supporting them. So it's kind of interesting to have that. It increases the legitimacy of the science. The data analyst was blinded after assignment. A detailed summary of the study design is in figure 1. I won't show you the figure, I just explained it. Okay, so the various components, they had telemetric devices. Both groups got these, which includes this thing called a Smart Lab Walk P+, which is a pedometer. The HMM Holding AG, that's the company that makes that Smart Lab Walk P+ in Germany. Automatically transferring recorded data into an online portal. These data were monitored by the participants and the coaches. Participants were instructed to measure their weight and steps continuously throughout the study. All right, so the seminar-based education program consisted of 7 theoretical, in other words, the why, and 2 practical, the how-to, as well as on exercise and cooking, addressing different lifestyle-related topics, 90 minutes per seminar. The main theoretical topics were low carbohydrate diets and why they're healthy, insulin blood glucose lipolysis relationship, a meal replacement therapy by formula diet, continuous blood glucose monitoring. They taught them about that and what foods would impact their blood glucose, eating behavior, to be paying attention to hunger, suggestibility of ads and things like that, physical activity, how it impacts your energy consumption, acid-base balance, where they teach about why ketone levels are a good thing when you limit your carbohydrate. So that was all the explanation. Those are some pretty good seminars. If they're teaching that to them, that's pretty cool. The program was developed and presented by academic experts, nutritionists, exercise scientists, biologists, and physicians, all in cooperation with psychologists. So do you see across all modalities of this, it wasn't just they went on a low-carb diet. They went on a low-carb diet, got intensive education, got intensive support, got medical background, was encouraged to have a lower stress level, was encouraged to do physical activity, had all of these things, which should be a reminder to all of us. If they're going through that rigorous of a detail to make this a low insulin method that's going to be healthy for these study participants, that's something you can take home with you and go, oh, I only focus on the diet. And maybe today you're realizing, oh crap, like I'm focusing on the diet to the exclusion of all those other things. Now, you can't necessarily have someone there holding your hand. Indirectly, you do with people like me and other influencers on social media that could be teaching you things, maybe not in an organized way, just for a class for you, but hopefully you do learn stuff when you watch my shows and when you listen to other people out there. All right, so let's look at the low carbohydrate nutrition and meal replacement therapy. The study participants were provided with information about the current scientific results of meal replacement with formula diets and overweight and obesity management, as well as general facts about the impact of a low-carb meal on glucose and insulin. As part of the nutritional intervention, participants could freely choose between a self-assembled low-carb diet or having meal replacement with a formula diet, which again would fit the template of a low-carb diet. In each case, the nutrition should consist of no more than 30% of their diet being carbohydrates, and there it is. It's a good study up to now, and it's still a good study, even though I think they missed the mark with this 30% of the diet being carbohydrates. Because if they're already overweight, they're already obese, some of them have type 2 diabetes, most all of them have insulin resistance, and the goal of the study is to be a low insulin diet, why would you make it that high in carbohydrates? Because a ketogenic diet, for example, is about 5 to 10% of your calories coming from carbohydrate. A carnivore diet has 0 carbohydrates. So reduced carb maybe, lower carb, because 30% carbohydrates, let's say they ate 2,000 calories in the day. Okay, I'm just making up a number. 2,000 calories, and 30% of those 2,000 calories was carbohydrate. So 2,000 divided by 4 is what? 500? Did I do that right? So 4 is the number of calories for 1 gram of carbohydrate. So Alexa, what is 30% of 500?
30% of 500 is 150.
150 grams of carbs. That's a lot of carbs. If 30% of their diet was comprised of carbohydrate, that's 150 grams of carbs. I wouldn't really call that low carbohydrate. Lower than the standard American diet? Yeah. So this is the first kind of flaw I'm seeing in the study. If they really wanted to test the efficacy of getting insulin low, wouldn't you want to push the carbs at least below 100? Because 150 is a little bit steep. And really by definition, you can't even say lower carb until you're below 100. And if you really want to see the impact that it's going to have, especially on people with insulin resistance, especially on people who have obesity, you've really got to push the carbs down a lot lower than 30% of total calories. 150 grams of carbs, that's a lot of carbs. If they did 50 grams, it would still be a little bit high for some people, but at least it would be a little better at showing the efficacy of a low insulin method. You guys following me here? So I'm a little bit upset they didn't go lower in percentage, but even with that, they still saw efficacy in the end result. So it's a good thing. It just shows that, okay, sort of kind of halfway doing it, look at the results they got. What would they do if they went all the way and showed better results? But let's continue. If participants used this 30% carbohydrates nutritional approach, they had to reduce their total amount of carbs and primarily consume starch-free and complex carbohydrates and abstain from less complex carbohydrates, things like sweets, pasta, and bread. So they discouraged them from doing that. And when you discourage people from sweets, pasta, and bread, guess what? Your carbs go down. There's no way that they couldn't. In contrast, participants were also advised to increase their intake of protein-rich foods and unsaturated fatty acids. So they got a little bit of saturated fat phobia in this study because there's nothing wrong with saturated fat, but I think they're trying to toe the line. They wanted this to get published, and it did get published. Maybe this is the games they had to play in order to get it published, but things like olive oil and fish. So participants who decided to follow the systematic meal replacement could freely choose a low-carb diet consisting of 30% carbohydrates and 50% protein, which leaves 20% fat, to replace all three main meals as described above. Wow, 50% protein is a lot of protein. Check this out, guys. On a 2,000 calorie diet, we're going to do the same thing. 2,000 calorie diet, there's 4 grams or 4 calories per gram of protein. So that's 500 calories worth of, half. 1,000 calories worth of protein. You ready for this one? 250 grams of protein. Now, I did a high protein experiment last year, and the highest level of protein I was able to attain was 270 grams in a day. Can I tell you that was extremely hard? I was pounding just protein. I wasn't even having carbohydrate or much fat with it at all. It was pretty much just protein, chicken breast, turkey, and things like that. And so, wow, 50% protein in the diet. 250 grams of protein. Now, I know some of the bodybuilders are like, yeah, bro, what's wrong with that, man? But that's a lot of protein. In brief, participants replaced 3 of those 3 meals during the first week. No additional snacks were permitted during weeks 2 through 4. They should reintroduce a low-carb lunch. 2 of the 3 meals were replaced by the formula diet. So they mixed it up. They gave them the shake, meal replacement shakes at some meals. They let them choose the meal based on this formula at other meals. Beginning in week 5, an additional low-carb breakfast was introduced while 1 of 3 meals still had to be replaced. So at the start, they did a lot of meal replacements and then like 1 meal of that component I just described. And then as they progressed to the 12 weeks, they kept adding meals, taking away meal replacements. So that's kind of an interesting way to do it, because it's easier to get liquid calories than it is to eat food. The reintroduction phase was accompanied by CGM and also provided to the participants who decided to abstain from the meal replacement in order to learn more about what impact the individual foods had on their glucose levels. The low carbohydrate diet had to be continued until the end of the study after 1 year. Moreover, participants were instructed to replace meals whenever necessary if weight gain started taking place. In order to improve study compliance, consumed meals should have been documented by taking pictures, but this was not statistically investigated. I mean, everybody's got a camera phone. You could take a picture of your meal. If you go on Instagram, there's some people that do it willingly, take a picture of all their food and post it every single day. That's one of you. That's fine. Congratulations if that's what you want to do with your life. But I find it interesting, if they started to gain weight, they had to go back to the meal replacement shakes. And I wonder if their propensity, if they lost weight, I wonder if it was a calorie reduction at that point. So it's kind of interesting to see what did they do to mitigate the weight gain. Obviously, if you reduce calories, you can lose weight and you will lose weight. But I wonder if that was the plan, or if they just said, well, you're eating low insulin, you shouldn't be gaining weight. A better thing would have been for the investigators to try to look at why are they gaining weight if they're eating this so-called healthy plan that was supposed to keep their insulin levels down. And I would like to know if at that point they're gaining weight, what were their insulin levels like then? Were their insulin levels going higher? And it's also an argument for maybe that 30% carbohydrate, which equated to 150 grams of carbohydrate, and maybe that 50% of the diet protein, which equated to 250 grams of protein, maybe those things were having an impact. Something to think about. To evaluate the diet adherence or the meal replacement regimen, participants were advised to record their meals in a diet diary and to focus on eating low carbohydrate nutrition. Furthermore, all participants were supervised by coaches during the telemedical coachings, and they were asked to provide information on their nutritional behavior during the study and whether or how often they replaced their meals with formula diets. So sometimes they get a chance to do the meal replacement, and they just had to report that they did that. Okay, next thing, continuous glucose monitoring. All of them were equipped with a CGM, the Freestyle Libre, for 2 weeks during weeks 3 and 4. So they start the study in weeks 1 and 2, not wearing a CGM. Remember, it's a 12-week primary study and then 1 year for the end of the study. In the 12 weeks, the primary study, weeks 3 and 4, which you put that little thing in your arm, which if you listen to my Real Talk podcast last week, I had Kara Collier on, a registered dietitian from the company Nutrisense. You can go listen to that Real Talk podcast last Thursday, llvlc.com, or we put the video up as a bonus episode on YouTube if you want to go look at it. She talks all about, we talk all about CGMs, but they had it on for 2 weeks, and they were instructed to document their lunch and their glucose values before eating at 1.5 hours and 2.5 hours. So basically they were looking at what was the postprandial blood sugar reading for each meal. Additionally, they should try out the effects of intensive exercise and test their blood sugar level as well. Participants were encouraged to adapt their meals and habits, aiming to keep their glucose within a normal range. In case of nutrition-related uncertainties, they received help from the coaches. Anti-diabetic medications, things like metformin, were monitored and adjusted by treating physicians. And this is so important. If you're going to do something like this with all this intensity in all these different areas, you better be looked at, especially if you have drug interventions being involved. As a type 2 diabetic or someone on medication as a pre-diabetic, you got to make sure you're being monitored by a doctor so they can adjust your medication. The CGM primarily served as a pedagogic tool to visualize for the participants the influence of foods on their glucose levels and to show them support and giving them self-empowerment. It is powerful when you're wearing that glucose monitor and you're bloop, and you're like, yes, 85, and you're just like, you get a quantifiable that's a lot more relevant. Kind of like the reason why people step on a scale. They need something to make them feel like they're doing something. Although I think that particular one's a horrible measure. Okay, so what was the telemedical coaching about? The education program was continuously supported by telemedically supported coaching. Coaching sessions included information about coping strategies for lifestyle change, healthy diet for maintaining low insulin levels, physical activity, motivation, and overweight or obesity-related diseases, things like type 2 diabetes, data which had been acquired from the telemetric devices, which were monitored by the coaches and the participants throughout the whole study, were discussed within the coaching sessions, how many steps they took, what their current weight was, blah, blah, blah. Furthermore, participants were motivated to achieve their individual goals, things like weight loss goals, step counts, using a medical mental motivation program. I love the idea that they're getting to the mental part of this, because this is where the breakdown in so many people trying to be successful comes, is they lose the mental aspect of it and they go off the rails and they don't know why. And negative developments regarding recorded data were evaluated and discussed with the participants. Coaching sessions were also used to increase study compliance and adherence to the protocols by the coaches. That's so good too, because in a lot of these studies, when they leave the people on their own without giving them support, there is major dropout when it's a difficult protocol to follow. So when you add in the coaching and let the coaches kind of regularly tune in, it makes sure that they stay on the straight and narrow. Participants were asked for the frequency and amount of the diet used, as well as all the composition of their meals to increase compliance, to make sure they're doing their definition of a low carbohydrate diet, 30%. Deviations from this diet or low carb diet approach were discussed. Participants were advised to follow the guidelines of the intervention program. The frequency of coaching sessions comprised 4 appointments during the first 12 weeks, 3 calls during the follow-up from weeks 13 to 26. The telemedical coaching calls were performed by specially trained lifestyle coaches, and they were on the phone for 20 to 30 minutes. All right, next part of this study was the physical activity. The program also provided guidance on how to change physical activity, how to react to elevated blood glucose. Because again, if you listened to my podcast on Real Talk last week with Kara Collier on Thursday, we talked about that. When you exercise, you will have a response on your blood glucose. And Kara explained it brilliantly. It's like your body stores up these glycogen stores, this glucose in your muscles. And so if you test your blood sugar after exercising, it's going to show a high level of blood glucose. Well, duh, that's giving you energy during your workout. Wait a few hours, test again, and you'll see your blood glucose is much lower later in the day. So participants were advised to increase their physical activity. They were advised on how to perform it properly. These theoretical recommendations were underpinned by exercise sessions in a gym and sports club throughout the 12 weeks. So they got actually hands-on help in the gym, showing them exactly, like a personal trainer, showing them exactly what kind of exercises to do, so forth and so on. So what were the measurements in the study? Participants visiting the study center after a 10-hour overnight fast at baseline, and then again 12, 26, and 52 weeks for the determination of their things like age, sex, body weight, height, BMI, waist circumference, fat mass, blood pressure, total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, triglycerides, fasting blood glucose, fasting insulin, HOMA IR score, which I did a whole Jimmy Rants on recently, and HbA1c. Body weight was measured wearing light clothing, and they used a body composition scale called SECA, S-E-C-A, which was validated for use to determine their fat mass. Blood pressure was measured on both arms after a 5-minute resting period. Venous blood was collected by inserting an intravenous cannula into the forearm. That's how they got all the blood work. Validated self-reporting questionnaires were used to assess quality of life. So they basically said, hey, how you feeling? How's it going? Are you happy most day? You know, those kind of questions that they do on these questionnaires. So they did it at various points to determine that quality of life. Physical activity and eating behavior, as well as cardiovascular disease risk, using all of these parameters that are well established in the science. Okay. The statistical analysis is pretty standardized. So let's skip down. Primary intervention in the study, by the way, let's get to that. Where did I see that? The primary intervention is to see weight reduction. They wanted to see how much weight could they lose in that 12-week period, and could they keep it off for the full duration of the 52 weeks. So they estimated how much weight they would lose, and they assumed also that there would be a 20% dropout rate. So they tried to get a total of 15 participants per group. Secondary outcomes included differences in the BMI, cardiometabolic risk markers, eating behavior, quality of life, physical activity. Let me see if I can go down a little bit more. Let's get to the results while I take a swig of water. Dilly. So the results of the study, out of the 50 subjects who were interested in the study, 36 of them met the criteria. However, 6 declined to participate or they got excluded for other reasons. A total of 30 participants were in the study, and 15 of them were put in the low insulin method and the other 15 in the control group. 14 of them, 93% of the low insulin, and another 14, 93% in the control group completed the 12-week intervention. So they only lost one person in each wing of the study. I thought that was good. Follow-up data obtained 52 weeks after the beginning of the study were available from 25 total participants. So they did have an 80% completion rate. They said there would be 20% dropout, and it was exactly 20% dropout. The main reason for the dropouts were personal reasons. 3 of them, one changed employer and had to move. That was one. And then one didn't have time to go through all the protocols. That was one as well. Participants who completed the intervention and follow-up phase and those who dropped out or were lost to follow-up did not differ significantly. No adverse effects reported. Okay. So what were the results? Primary endpoint, participants of the low insulin group significantly reduced their weight compared to the control group after 12 weeks. It remains statistically significant even after adjusting for age, sex, BMI, and all the rest. Differences after 12 weeks of intervention for the secondary endpoints compared to the control group. The low insulin group had improvements in their BMI, waist circumference, fat mass, and variables of eating behavior after 12 weeks. And again, that was adjusted for all the parameters too. The tertiary endpoints, we hadn't gotten to those yet. Changes in weight, absolute and relative, BMI, A1C, and fasting insulin within the whole group after 12, 26, and 52 weeks. They had improvements in weight, BMI, and the A1C and insulin. So, pretty good. I'm trying to see if they show the specific changes in some of these other parameters. After 12 weeks, 70% of the participants were successful in losing at least 5% of their body weight. So 70% lost at least 5% of their body weight. So if they were a 200-pound woman, that's a pretty good clip of weight. So that's good. That's 20 pounds. And 70% maintained that through the full 52 weeks. Of the 20 participants who had a BMI over 35, accomplished a weight reduction greater than 5% after 12 weeks, 60% maintained it until week 52. When you've been bigger, it's hard to keep it off. And so the fact that they kept it off despite the higher BMI at the beginning. A total of 20% of participants with a BMI at 35 kilos at baseline, which was 10 of them, achieved a weight loss of greater than 10% after 12 weeks, and the percentage increased to 30% after 52 weeks. So in other words, they were really motivated in that group to try to get the weight off and keep it off. All right. Trying to see... Let me look at, okay, here it is, glucometabolic parameters. So that's the A1C and the fasting insulin. They were statistically different after 12 and 26 weeks. Only fasting insulin was still significantly different at the end. So their insulin levels dropped 4.4 points. That's pretty good, as opposed to 1.5 points for the control group. So that's really good. All right, so let's get to the discussion, and I want to see what you guys have to say. In the present study, we could demonstrate that the low insulin method included in the multi-component occupational healthcare SAMAS program focused on hypocaloric, so it was low calorie, guys. So not only did they eat 30% of their diet as carbohydrate and 50% of their diet as protein. They were also low calorie. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. They took a look at all the parameters, and let's skip on to the end because there's a lot of like, blah, 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 aren't we great? We found kind of effects. Oh, here it is. Strengths and limitations in the study that should be considered. First, this SAMUS intervention study was highly accepted. Thus, the overall dropout rate during the 12 weeks, as well as the 52-week follow-up, was 10% and 20% respectively. This low dropout rate, especially after the intensive intervention phase, was shown in another telemedical coaching study in patients with metabolic syndrome. So I think they've proven the efficacy of this template for keeping the patients in the program. The low dropout rate could be explained by the design of the study. Almost no barriers for the participants because they got one-on-one support and they didn't have to pay anything for any of this service. Most of the dropouts were for individual reasons and a change in employment. Employees, remember these were all hospital employees at that Catholic hospital with overweight and obesity, had been invited to participate. Therefore, a selection bias by the investigation of only motivated employees cannot be excluded. So remember, they were recruiting, hey, we got this weight loss study, you want to be a part of it. Well, if you're somebody that's got obesity and you hear about a study about obesity and that you could participate in it, you're going to be kind of gung-ho about it. So it was a little bit of the bias in that realm that they knew what kind of person they were looking for, and those people came running when they came a-calling. The randomization procedure should have reduced any potential effect over the 12 weeks. Furthermore, the baseline characteristics were not different. Another limitation of the study may be the lack of food records to screen for exact food composition, because they did rely on them to tell them what they were eating. On the other hand, we decided to abstain from food records due to well-known systematic errors with dietary records in obese people. In other words, they lie. They don't tell you what they actually eat. However, we use coaching to control and regulate food consumption. Furthermore, participants were encouraged to send pictures of their food and to note their meals during the CGM phase, which was, again, remember weeks 3 and 4, they wore a CGM, which should increase study compliance. A third potential limitation of the study is the imputation of missing values, which might have led to reporting bias. Therefore, with this method, our results might have been underestimated in some areas. Also, as this was an RCT pilot study to examine the effect of a low insulin method, the number of participants per group was chosen to be in line with the guidelines for German health insurance for related patient training. Fifth, although there were no statistical differences between the two regarding physical activity after 12 weeks, it should be considered that physical activity is a potentially confounding variable which could have impacted the results. And I would agree with them. If you're trying to test low insulin diet and you want to see what the diet has done, that's one thing. If you're looking at low insulin as a totality, then I think having the physical activity in there was a smart idea, not a confounding variable. But it seems to me the researchers are even admitting, yeah, we were trying to see if it was the diet. But if their whole approach was, let's have a low insulin method, I think all methods of lowering insulin should be included and it would not be a confounding variable in the end results. As part of the seminar-based program in theory and practice, participants were encouraged to increase their physical activity, which was also supported and monitored using pedometers, as well as to perform sport based on their own preference. Here's the problem with telling people to increase your physical activity. Physical activity is not one thing. Now, if you tell them do cardio, do walking, running, those kinds of things, that would be one thing. But when you say physical activity, it's not just that. It could be weightlifting, resistance training, HIIT training, all kinds of things they could be doing for their physical activity. And then that becomes a confounding variable in the end result if the primary outcome in the study is looking at weight loss. Now, they obviously looked at fat loss and some other things where if they did gain weight, they would see it was not in fat. They would see that it was in the muscle, especially if they did a DEXA scan, which I don't think they did on this study. Furthermore, although a power calculation was performed to calculate an appropriate sample size to detect the differences in weight change between the groups, the present small sample size could have had an impact on the power to detect the differences, such as the ones in A1C. Remember, they ended up with 15 in each category, and then by the end, it was less than that. The major strength of the study is the innovative telemedical and multifactorial approach, and I agree with them. I think that could be a template for other studies to follow. If you're going to have a randomized trial that's looking at weight loss and other cardiometabolic parameters, this is a great way to do it. I did love this part of the study. Due to its low staff and economic requirements, our program could easily be implemented into any occupational healthcare setting. Total cost for each participant was around €700, which is what, about 750 bucks? That's pretty good. $750 for the whole year, including costs for equipment, the coaching calls, salary for staff, maintenance costs for access to the online portal throughout the 52 weeks of the study period. When comparing the cost of the program with the health economic burden regarding the obesity-related expenses such as sick leave days and drug costs, this could be promising and long-term cost-effective treatment approach. Here's the thing, they did it with 30 people. If it's that inexpensive, do it with 3,000 people and have 1,500 in each intervention. And if the dropout rate is 20%, you still got over 1,000 people each in each of the wings of the study. I want to see that. Why could they not do that? It just would take manpower. It would take more coaches, more blah, blah, blah. But from a cost perspective, and probably that cost could come down because some of this stuff, equipment, you could get at a discount if you bought it in bulk because you're doing a big study. And some of these companies that have these things, hey, we're going to do a huge randomized trial with your product. We're going to feature it. We're going to talk about it. Some of them might even give it to them for free. They need a marketing guy to help them kind of negotiate these kinds of things because it would not be hard to get. The possibility of repeating the program and the lack of side effects underline the potential of our innovative lifestyle-based approach. In a follow-up project, so here's their idea for a follow-up project. We applied this to a similar cohort. They already did the study, which led to even better results after 52 weeks. These findings illustrate the differences in generalization between RCT and single-arm interventions and remarkably show the ambivalent problem of internal and external validity. That's the word. Even randomized controlled trials should be interpreted with caution, as selection bias or compliance problems in the control group can mask the potential effect of the intervention. So the conclusion is that this low insulin method, you guys, could be an effective and promising new approach for the reduction in body weight and long-term weight loss maintenance in people who have overweight and obesity. We are hoping the present findings can be confirmed in much larger trials in order to increase generalization for the whole population. So that's huge, you guys. And I'm looking at who funded the study. It was supported by a German, I think it's a German foundation. I don't read German. It says Fonderwering Verbund Katholischer Kliniken Düsseldorf. I think it's something about a Catholic clinic. I don't read German. The funder had no influence whatsoever on the study. And these results, by the way, were presented June 7th through the 11th as preliminary findings last year, 2019, June 7th through 11th last year at the American Diabetes Association. So the ADA knows all about this research, and they got the scoop last year, but it literally just came out, you guys, in the journal Nutrients in September 30th, 2020. Go check it out. Weight reduction by the Low-Insulin Method, a randomized controlled trial. I hope you enjoyed that study. A few little flaws here and there that I think they could have made it a little bit better, but all in all, I think that's the kind of research we need to be seeing more of and not less. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Again, when I go over studies, it goes a little bit long, so I apologize for going over an hour. I like to keep these tightly to an hour, but if it's good information, I don't stop talking. So we're going to come here first to Instagram, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. And a reminder, if you missed the beginning, this is my last week of 2020. So all week long on Jimmy Rants, come live, because live on the air, I'm going to give away a copy of one of my books. Literally all you have to do is just be on my live, and I'm going to be giving one of you guys, before I get off the air here today, a chance to win any one of my books, the book of your choice. I got all of my books, and so you tell me which one you want, and I will hook you up. So get ready. I'm going to just randomly pick one of you guys here in a second, so get ready. The prerequisite is you have to leave me a comment. So leave me a comment down there. And when I get to the randomized time, I will say you're the winner. Reach out to me. That's how it'll work. So, and we're also giving away on all my posts all week. So don't think you just can do it on Jimmy Rants. I do want you to watch the live, but if you're watching this on replay, leave a comment as well. Or if you're reading any of my posts all week long, Monday through Friday, I'm probably going to give away about 3 to 4 dozen of my books. So go ahead, hook it up, add me a comment, and we will hook you up. All right, JimmyRants.com is the website. Let's see what you guys have to say. Becky says, looks like it's making it a healthy lifestyle, not a quick fix mindset. Yeah, that really is the goal of trying to be a low insulin approach, is a healthy lifestyle. Because yeah, when you try to do a diet, it does kind of have this connotation of, well, let me go on this diet so I can quick fix. And it doesn't work that way. Brigitte says, as long as we don't demonize insulin as we still need it. Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. Low insulin doesn't mean no insulin. Ask any type 1 diabetic what a no insulin is like, and they will tell you it's miserable. So I see I've got a type 1 diabetic friend over here on Facebook, Wendy. What's up, Wendy? And yeah, a bunch of you guys have type 1 diabetes. It's no fun to have where the pancreas doesn't make any insulin. So when we say low insulin, we definitely mean in the single digits, under 10. And I think they say the optimal is right there between like 3 to 5 is kind of where you want to be. I know some people are down like 1.7, 2.4. I hate you people that are down that low. I think the last time I checked mine, it was 8, but it's been as high as like 21. So not super high. Some people with type 2 diabetes can be over 100. So, but thank you for that, Brigitte, to remind me, don't demonize insulin. You're right. We do need it. You always have to do what's best for your body. That's right. Joshua says, as you get healthier, you get a little bit more metabolic flexibility, usually. Yes, exactly. So as you heal the insulin resistance, yeah, you can increase your carbohydrate. That's why not testing, which they did test HOMA-IR score. I did not see anything about that in the study that I was reading, Joshua, about what their HOMA-IR results were. I would think if the people had a lower HOMA-IR score, then they probably could handle those extra carbohydrates. But the ones that had a higher HOMA-IR, it would have been more prudent for them to reduce carbohydrate. And the fact that it was hypocaloric in the study is probably indirectly leading to some of the positiveness. Because if they're not eating 2,000 calories, but I don't know how many calories they ate. Let's say it was 1,000 calories. Well, now that 150 grams of carbohydrate, 30% of 100 1,000 calories. I'll get it right here in a minute. So that's basically 75 grams of carbohydrate. So indirectly, the hypocaloric part reduce carbohydrate. That's why I think people who eat a low-calorie diet see results. It's not the low calorie. It's the fact that they lower carbohydrate. Unless all they eat on their low-calorie diet is carbohydrate, then it could be a problem. But yeah, a lot of times that's the big factor. Snowy says, I wish articles like these would be in the waiting room at my doctor's office. All I read are magazines with articles like 50 ways to make your kids' Halloween candy into decadent desserts. Yeah, it is unfortunate. I was reading something the other day. The medical industry cares nothing about food, and the food industry cares nothing about your health. Something like that. You guys have seen that meme out there, and it's so true. Like, they don't talk to each other. Becky says, I'd say below 50 grams for the carbs. Oh, I agree with you, Becky. 50 grams at the minimum for sure. She said, holy crap, that for 2,000 calories, that's 150 grams of carbs for 30%, 250 grams of protein for 50% of the calories, and that only leaves 44 grams of total fat. Yeah, I would be starving. I love the information I get from wearing my CGM and have used NutriSense for mine. That's cool. Kavia says, eating raw meat, raw fat, raw unheated honey, unpasteurized vegetable juice, unpasteurized coconut cream, unpasteurized dairy, and I get sun to be healthy. That sounds amazing. Really amazing. All right. I've been sharing that ADF study around quite a bit. Well, good. Oh, the alternate day fasting. Yeah, I did that one recently. I love doing the studies if you guys haven't noticed. Haven't noticed at all. Love you, bro, says Rumi. Thank you for that. All right, thank you, Instagram. I'm going to pop over here now to my Facebook page. What up, Facebook? See what you guys have to say. Great to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Mandy says, oh, the addictive cycle. Yes, it's a mess. I think we could all benefit from low carb, says Berkeley. Well, yeah. I do think on the scale of low carb, we could all benefit. I don't think everybody needs to be at ketogenic levels of carbohydrate. And nor do I think someone who has metabolic disease needs to be at elite athlete level of carbohydrates. So when we say everybody should be low carb, we kind of have to define terms there. I think low carb could be a sliding scale depending on your insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance, your activity level, your age, all those things. But I don't think most people need to be over 100 grams carbs. Unless you're just like a really top athlete. I remember interviewing Mark Cucuzella. He's a medical doctor in West Virginia, and he's a runner, like distance runner. And he says on race day, he will load up on 150 grams carbohydrate. Why does he do that? Tops off the glycogen store, so he's got plenty of that jet fuel basically to take off. And then once he burns through that 150 grams carbohydrate on race day, then he's a fat burning machine because he's been used to burning fat for fuel. And we burn both, but when he's learned to burn fat efficiently, then adding in that carbohydrate, it just jet fuels it out of his body first. And then once that carbohydrate is out of his body, he's able to learn, or his body is able to burn the fat to finish the race strong. Look at the whole picture and look at bioindividuality. Exactly, Mandy. Exactly. Don't you think when we were younger, our body compensated for bad habits till we messed up our pancreas? Oh, of course. That's exactly what we did. I think the typical German diet's very high in potatoes and bread, so maybe over 100 carbs is lower carb. Maybe. They also like their sausages, which are high in fat, which in this study, there was no hardly saturated fat in it at all. Keep up the good work. Gonna miss you for the next 2 months. Have a great break, says Sally. Well, thank you, Sally, and thank you, Facebook. Now, let me pop over here now to my YouTube channel. What's up, YouTube? See what you crazy folks have to say over here. Craig says, you have a keen eye for finding issues like confounding variables with these studies. What's a keto carnivore related hypothesis you'd like to test? Would you set up to experiment to test it? I would just say, hey, let's get what normal people do. Let's stop pretending like some of these studies, like this is a 30% carbohydrate, 50% protein diet. Let's actually do what people do. What I would love to see tested is a high-fat ketogenic diet, which is mostly animal-based, versus a high-protein diet that is purported to be ketogenic, and then compare the two side by side. That would be an interesting study, and make it animal-based as well. And so have the high-fat group eat 75% fat, 25% protein. Have the high-protein group eat 60% fat, 40% protein, and let's see the difference in every parameter, not just weight. Weight is irrelevant in that one, but I think that would be an outstanding study that easily could be done. I know that Dr. Sean Baker is working on, his Meat RX is working on getting funding for doing some studies. Not sure what studies he's going to try to do, but I'm sure they're going to do some really good ones. Appreciate these studies, says RJB. I too would like to see larger trials, would add even more validity to the findings. Okay. Come back over here to Instagram. Kelly says, I'll miss you in the mornings. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting away, but I do love you guys, especially those of you that watch on a regular basis, like you, Kelly, and like Rachel, who says, I wish they put this much effort into a keto study. Yeah, you're right. This would be a great design. And see, at least they've now given the template about how you can do a study well. And so any researcher can take their same parameters and the same kind of things that made this a success and do it themselves. So that's what I'm hoping will happen with future studies overall. RJB says, what I do is 50 grams total carbs on max, 150 to 220 grams of fat, depending on the day and how I feel, 80 to 110 grams of protein. So you would be in that high fat group I was just talking about. Yeah, let's test high fat versus high protein and do it in people of varying metabolic types. So you can get the bodybuilder types, you can get the people who are insulin resistant, you can get a type 2 diabetic, you can get older, you can get younger, get a nice cross section of the population, and that would be really, really helpful. Okay, you guys, before I leave, one of you guys is going to win one of my books. So who wants to win a book? Who wants to win a book? Who wants to win a book? So we're going to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Which way do I go? There. Okay, so we're going to start with Instagram. I'm not losing you guys the rest of the week. Don't worry. We'll come back to you guys in future Jimmy Rants. But again, go on my any of my social media channels. So Instagram, Facebook, even leave a comment on my YouTube videos. That's how you enter. Just leave a comment. So I'm going to randomly choose someone. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to scroll, and stop. And if I'm waving at you, you are my winner. All right, so all you got to do, 128 kbps. 128 kbps. I'm going to take a screenshot so I remember to send a message to them. But all you've got to do is reach out to me through Instagram message, and you can choose the book of your choice out of the Jimmy Moore library of books. I've got 7 of them available. I'm going to keep showing them all week long so that those of you who do finally win, there will be a bunch of you that win. So don't worry if you didn't win today. I will be giving these away literally all week long. You choose one of your choice. I will autograph it and then get it off in the mail to you by the weekend. Or by Monday next week, sometime. I'm going to get it all. But congratulations, 128 kbps. Thank you for watching today. And that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so be there, be square. We also simulcast over here on Facebook as well as over on YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram, IGTV specifically. It's going to go right up there as soon as this is over, so go watch that. You can also watch the replay over on YouTube, just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. And finally, pop on over to the official website. It is jimmyrants.com. Once you're there, you can see all the past episodes, and it's also where you can support me either through Patreon or a PayPal link, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. Okay, guys, that's it for now. We will see you again real soon, tomorrow at 11 a.m. And come back tomorrow. I've got more free books to give away. Come back, come back. We will see you then.